last page was really nice because one of the guys said the mayor does right and things go wrong. And so it was kind of nice to read it. Yeah.
Good evening. Good evening.
Oh, yeah, we're going to start with Jack Fuller.
Good evening. Good evening. Good evening and welcome to our October 4th Village Board of Trustees meeting. I'd like to do it this time is have everybody stand for the pledge, and if you have a hat on, please remove it. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening and welcome to the October 4th meeting. Just a point of reference, the exit off to your right and behind you where you came in. At this time, the very first thing I'd like to do is to address Mr. Thor. If you would come up, sir. So Jack Thor is an Eagle Scout. He's had his Board of Honor last week, Friday, and did an amazing project over the town hall. It's really well regarded. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it, so I asked if he could make it tonight. So I appreciate you coming in and giving me that opportunity. Again, Jack is part of Troop 440. Yes. Yes, sir. And we have a tradition here at the village where we like to acknowledge our Eagle Scouts in the best possible way. So I'd like to do that as we could now, sir. Okay. So the Village of Monroe, State of New York, proclamation honoring Jack Michael Thor, Eagle Scout, Court of Honor. Whereas the mission of the Boy Scouts of America is to prepare young people to make ethical and moral choices throughout their lifetimes by instilling in them the values of the Scout Oath and law. And whereas the designation of Eagle Scout is the highest achievement of Boy Scouts, and only 4% of Boy Scouts have earned that distinction. And further, whereas Jack Michael Thau, the member of Troop 440, has completed the requirements and after an Eagle Scout Board review has convened and found him worthy of the rank of Eagle Scout. And whereas Jack Michael Thor has worked diligently to complete his project constructing 5 handicap accessible wood picnic benches along with planted Green Mountain boxwood bushes and 3 Colorado spruce bushes trees for the beautification of the Monroe Town Hall. And whereas Jack Michael Thor has served his troop and his peers, has performed selflessly on behalf of his community, having shown leadership, presentation of civic duty, and has served as an example to all communities, making the Village of Monroe very proud. Now therefore be it proclaimed the Village Board of Trustees on behalf of our residents and community wish to acknowledge Jack Michael Thor for his attaining the rank of Eagle Scout, for his work and his commitment to his community, and extend to him our best wishes in all that he will do in his life. And for a grateful community I say, thank you sir, well done.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you again, and thank you, Steve, for coming down and bringing them in. I appreciate it. Okay, next order of business is the continuation of public hearing introducing Local Law 10 of 2022, the modification of Chapter 195 of the Village Code Water to protect the Monbassia Reservoir from contamination. If I could get a motion to open or continue that open hearing.
Berenger will make the motion.
Carl will second.
Call the question?
Berenger, aye.
Ferraro, I.
Carl, aye.
O'Connor, aye.
Dwyer, aye, so carried. Okay, the public hearing is now open. Anybody wishing to speak on any matter regarding this? Do you have a list?
Thank you.
Yes, of course, of course. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thanks again for the opportunity to speak. Last night, the residents of Monroe came to a town board meeting and made a presentation asking for the support of the board against the ability for them to use the lake as a form of, in the form of boating, fishing, etc., as long as they bordered the lake. The town board did express support and asked me to come down and speak again. Being that they're taxpayers, it was, they felt it was eminent that we needed to support our taxpayers. So I have a couple of questions and then a statement. So Section 3, Item 6, and Council, these are, the first couple questions are directed at you, or to you, sorry. Can the village board, if a party owns a portion of the lake, prohibit that party from using the lake portion they own to swim, boat, fish, snowmobile, snowshoe, or any other similar activity? And then can a property owner fish from the shore of their property into the lake? If what is stated in the next section 4, that the legislative intent is to supersede any provision of any local law, rule, or regulation, and any provision of the state village law or other special law that may be declared inconsistent or in conflict with this local law, does that mean that New York State law does not supersede your laws, or can New York State law still come into play with that? How will this law, if enacted, be regulated? Currently, the residents who have been policing Sharon's Cove area and tidying up that area of land located in the town have done an admirable job. I know Mayor Dwyer and I were out there last year sometime with Lila Prue and her family, and she does a regular cleanup at the access point leading up to the lake from the bus turnaround on East Monbassia. It was also a focus point during Clean Sweep in the spring by the town and the Lila and her family. Last week, we also had a group of residents come into Town Hall, met with me, and they respectfully expressed much displeasure of the new law, which I'm sure you're aware. And thus, the Monroe Town Board has requested that a public hearing remain open until a group can be formed to work through these issues. No village board member has expressed an immediate danger of contamination to the lake, or what the potential contamination is, and that leads to a final question and then a statement. Based on the statements at the stakeholders meeting and the lack of serious discussion during those meetings with the panel, what is the nature of the potential contamination from residents' use of the lake that exists? And then I'd like to try to understand how, as the question I asked before was, how are these regulations going to be enforced if the property is outside the jurisdiction of the village and in the town? The village doesn't have zoning authority in the town. The village owns a piece of land in the town, and it's a real curious scenario. Now, I also want to say that the town is in total support of protecting the lake, but if we're protecting the lake against the residents that surround it and they don't present an imminent danger, what's the purpose there? I just don't see it. And like I said, we express that the village leave open the public hearing so that a panel can be formed, committee can be formed, and these issues can be worked through. Thank you very much.
Good evening. I'm Marianne Bischoff, 40 Water Plant Road, Monroe. I wrote a poem that I wanted to share. It's only the second time I wrote a poem, so I'm a little nervous about reading it, but it's meaningful to me, and it's 3 minutes. Need to care for the lake. What I learned from my dad, my grandpa, my nana, my mom, I learned from the lake, the land, and the community that loved and cared for it. Reciprocity. The lake supported our community. It brought us together, kept us together. The lake, the land held me. My first visceral knowing. There is something greater than myself that I am a part of, connected with. It holds me in pain, me in joy, me in the mundane, me in ecstasy, me feeling lost and alone. Reciprocity. I care for the lake. I didn't have to learn it from scripture. In fact, scripture made sense to me because of the lake. Reciprocity. I notice her waters, her changes. I remove the garbage left by those who haven't yet remembered. Reciprocity. I teach others, listen, what do you hear? Look, what do you see? Sniff, what scents do you smell? Feel the physical and metaphysical enter you. Reciprocity, what gifts do you offer? I learned responsibility, I learned interconnection. Words came later. Here are some words that depict some of what I learned from my dad, my grandpa, my nana, my mom, the lake, and the land. Today we have gathered and we see that the cycles of life continue. We have been given the duty to live in balance and harmony with each other and all living things. So now we bring our minds together as one as we give greetings and thanks to each other as people. Now our minds are one. We are all thankful to our mother, the earth, for she gives us all that we need for life. She supports our feet as we walk about upon her. It gives us joy that she continues to care for us as she has from the beginning of time. To our mother, we send greetings and thanks. Now our minds are one. We give thanks to all the waters of the world for quenching our thirst and providing us with strength. Water is life. We know its power in many forms: waterfalls and rain, mists and streams, lakes and oceans. With one mind, we send greetings and thanks to the spirit of water. Now our minds are one. Gratitude begets responsibility. I offer the skills, love, and peacefulness my community's stewardship of the lake has given me. In humility, kinship, and connection, I offer my continued stewardship for the lake and its community. Marianne Kolb Bischoff. And thank you to the Haudenosaunee for their Thanksgiving address, part of which I borrowed here, all of which nourishes me. And thank you to Robin Wall Kimmerer, who in her collection of essays, Braiding Sweetgrass, offered me the word reciprocity to describe and deepen what I already knew. Thank you for listening.
Larry O'Neill, 8 Riley Road. I live right next door to the water plant. Thank you for the opportunity to be able to speak and for keeping the public hearing opening to be able to hear our thoughts. The lakefront residents of Monbassia want to work collaboratively with the town and the village on this matter. I think Marianne just pointed out, we're part of the ecosystem too. I know you don't necessarily always think of the residents and the people who border the lake that way, but we feed the aquifer, and our actions feed the aquifer. That's not just a danger. As Marianne just pointed out, we also remove invasive species and we remove garbage and other hazards from the lake. So we both protect it, and yes, there's dangers that come with anybody being near the lake, but at this point, I really don't see any real reason why recreation is causing any opposition or any detriment to the quality of the lake water. We've determined that from the reports. We appreciate the paving of Riley Road. It was a first step towards working together with the town and the residents who work on lakefront property on Monbassia. While the outcome of this action by the village was very positive, it was done with little to no communication in advance. A consistent theme here is a lack of collaboration, even while doing good deeds. In various forms since 2019, the lakefront residents have offered multiple suggestions to assist the village in its pursuit of a clean and efficient potable water delivery system. We've offered working with the DBW to organize invasive pull events in coordination with the village, have the DEC provide education to lakefront residents on how to be even better stewards than we are today, have lakefront residents perform water sample tests and record fishing statistics to help ensure the ongoing health of the lake, and have lakefront residents provide periodic patrols and report any noted violations. This alone will save scarce resources that the village has to begin with. And then actually set up a permit process that allows the lakefront residents to be able to have access with whatever conditions you want to propose. Again, dialogue. Tell us what it is you want us to do, but help us support what we need as well. All of these suggestions aim to prioritize the needs of the village first, while also preserving the interests of the lakefront residents. We seek dialogue to achieve our mutual goals. These proposals have been made and should be seen as a commitment of our group to work with the village and engage. A unilateral decision to move forward with a proposed change to village local law negatively affects town resident property values and the conditions under which we all bought or built our homes. And you lose 48 residents with 24-hour patrol and stewardship of that body of water. We implore each of you individually to consider the benefits of a collaborative solution rather than a unilateral decision and rescind the proposed change to the local law. Thank you.
Allison Priest, 24 Lakeview Drive. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I'm speaking out and asking the village to keep the law 195 in place. The residents and I have protected the health of the lake by recognizing the problems that affect the water and the ecosystem of the lake and the land that surround it for years now. I had originally formed a petition in 2019 asking for help with the water chestnuts and the damage that they caused. I have given you samples of these water chestnuts, our efforts of handling the invasive species of the weeds, and the survey from PRISM, as the taxpayers and homeowners have done our part to protect the lake. We keep the water quality very well, which was even talked about in your water workshop. That has been proven to be great quality of water. We have created no contamination. We have done exactly the opposite. We have helped the water chestnuts from choking the lake out of the oxygen and protecting the aquatic life. The lake is our backyard. Doesn't everybody take pride in their own backyard? If we did not act, the water chestnuts would have taken over half of the lake by now, killing other plants and animals in the lake, making a haven for mosquitoes to breed, and making it unsuitable to even sit in our own backyards. Doesn't everybody have the right to enjoy their backyards? We are asking for permits for our boats to continue the efforts of keeping the lake healthy and safe for all animals in and under the water. We ask the village and the town together to keep this law intact and work together in everybody's benefit. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mayor Dwyer, trustee. My name is Sanette Camilo. We purchased a property on West Monbassia Drive in 2003. We have enjoyed the lake for many years. The lake was, for a few years, was neglected. After many summers pulling weeds from the lake, we found a strange black seed that she mentioned before. And we continue research of what it was this black seed. I found a great nonprofit organization called Lower Hudson Invasive Plan, PRISM. We got in touch with Lindsay Joder, who is the coordinator of this specific organization. After sending her videos from a drone that I have, she agreed to do the survey of Mambesha. I met Allison, who had the same interest on the lake that I did. We did this voluntarily. It was not asked from us. We did it from our heart. We did it because we saw something strange was growing in the lake. We all got together and did it. We asked PRISM to come and do a survey, but we knew that we were even doing something that Major Dwyer, trustee that I have just met you, should be involved because this is the water of Mambesha. On September 21st, 2020, PRISM volunteered to survey the entire Mambesha Lake. On October 27, I met you in my home. We got together with some of the residents and we discussed and had many dialogues, relationships, a solution to work together to repair the reservoir. On October 28th, Allison and I organized a meeting at Mambesha Lake. We invited many of the residents. We invited Mayor Dwyer. We invited Trustee Carl to inform the residents of the critical infestation and share with the results of the survey. We expressed to the village that the residents were available and they still will be available to help with the plan of the corrected action. We discussed areas where the residents could continue to volunteer the time and services and had additional discussions about residents receiving boat permits as a step forward to protecting the lake. The trustees mentioned that it should be signs of no trespassing for the outsiders and getting the residents involved. We kept this confidential between the village and the residents because it wasn't about pointing fingers, it was about doing something for the lake. We never had a follow-up meeting with the village, and we never was given any warning of the drastic changes that the village has planned. To our surprise, our neighbors at the Nettie Fred Corporate and the East Mambesha was recently posted with a large non-trespassing sign. We were surprised. It was never dialogue or warning. The signs were going to be posted. There were other situations that the harvester conductor and some residents had in confrontation. And I have some concerns because I really personally do not know the harvester conductor, but it's always a very strong character, and this person who's conducting this harvester, I'm not sure why we keep having somebody who is not nice to the residents. On September 11, I started receiving many emails and text messages from the residents saying that we were changing the Chapter 195. Chapter 195 says that we could apply for permits. There have not been permits. When we ask for permits, the answer is no, we have no idea. We have no applications for boat permits at Mambesha Lake. We thank you so much, and I hope we get to a resolution because we really care. Thank you.
Should I wait for the horns to stop? Good evening, Mayor Dwyer, Board of Trustees, and Council Terhune, sorry. I am Fred Webke. I'm a resident of Camp Comfort on the shores of Lake Mambesha. I have attended all of the Village of Monroe and Town of Monroe public hearings and workshops that address the topic of Lake Mambesha recreational use. In addition, I have written 2 letters to the Mayor, Board, and Village Attorney. I've also sent a letter to the Village of Monroe Justices, the Honorable Justice Strauss and Honorable Justice Rosario. Our neighboring village of Tuxedo Park also has a reservoir known as Tuxedo Lake, used for residents' drinking water. The main difference between Lake Montbasha and Tuxedo Lake is that the Village of Tuxedo Park local law allows for, quote, the owners of record of property adjoining the shoreline of Tuxedo Lake are permitted to place boats in and on Tuxedo Lake, as provided in Tuxedo Park law, local law, Chapter 65, 2G, rules and regulations applicable to Tuxedo Lake. I'm just one of the many lakeside residents on Lake Montbasha who asked the Village of Monroe to re-examine the local law modification of Chapter 195, which seeks to eliminate all forms of recreation on the lake. Please consider the historic tradition of boating on Montbasha Lake, a tradition that has existed for well over 100 years, just as the lakeside residents of Tuxedo Lake continue to enjoy. Respectfully, Fred Webke.
Hi, good evening. Thank you again to the board for allowing us the opportunity to speak tonight. Over the past few weeks, we have had the pleasure of getting to know our neighbors on the lake. The message that I can confidently share is that amongst all of us, there is a love for the lake and its preservation. Each of us here may have a different connection or reasoning behind our desire to use the lake for recreational purposes, but our goal is for a viable solution, and that is a common one. Last night, I was able to address the Town of Monroe Board with our concerns as we are residents of the town. Supervisor Cardone has extended their support to us and have a willingness to work alongside the village and the stakeholders to comprise a solution. Our question here this evening is, what are the next steps that will be taken by the village? We would like to arrange a meeting as soon as possible to open up those discussions. We understand that a meeting took place in April of 2021 where voices were heard, and we would like that opportunity once again. Thank you so much.
Mayor Dwyer, distinguished members of the Monroe Village, thank you for allowing us to present our thoughts concerning the Village of Monroe's attempt to remove the current rule regarding the Lake Montbasha Reservoir for boating and fishing. I'm Dr. Stephen Chevalier, a member of the Netafred Corporation and its president. I have grown up with Lake Montbasha being an essential part of being in the country, as I'm a transplant from Queens. I attended several meetings for both the village and the town to educate myself in the workings of municipal government. I can see that as a challenge to be a member of either board. I would like to address my comments concerning Lake Montbasha Reservoir, building on everyone else's comments. Lake residents are a volunteer security force, making sure the lake remains a viable source of water for the Village of Monroe. In fact, lake residents have been doing this for generations. It would be extremely difficult for the village to manage the security of the lake on a 24/7 basis, as well as the lake residents. We are living 24/7 at the lake. Indeed, the village should encourage lake residents to be on the lake, keeping our eyes and ears open for any signs, evidence of potential contamination, and interlopers on the lake. After 9/11, we were told, see something, say something. We go beyond that and do something. I can assure you that all lake residents that fish offshore or boat are always observing the health of the lake, removing trash, looking for signs of potential contamination, and watching for trespassers. At the north end of the lake, several of the Nettie Fred family embarked on an effort to combat the water chestnut problem by hand as recommended by the DEC. We've been doing this for several years before the village began the harvester program. We saw the problem and did something. We are the security of the lake. At the last Village of Monroe meeting, a member of the village proceeded to debase lake residents, calling us selfish for wanting to use the lake for recreational purposes, which has been going on since the 1800s. The thought was that recreational use of the lake by an extremely limited population was causing contamination to the end user, the citizens of the village who were getting water from the lake. Well, here's a mason jar of lake water. Everyone here is welcome to try it. Pure lake water. Of course, this water contains many organic contaminants from aquatic flora, fish, their excrement, decaying organic material, runoff from the land, goose, deer, beaver, etc. excrement, oil, fuel from the harvesters. I would be hesitant to drink this water. But once processed at the water treatment plant and adequately tested, the water becomes potable. Lake residents are heavily invested in making sure the lake does not become contaminated as we get our water directly from the source of the lake. We know that Lake Monbassia is fed by natural springs under the lake, which come from the underlying aquifer. Every house around the lake has a well tapping into that aquifer. In essence, lake residents are the first line of defense and alarm if our water becomes contaminated, most likely from sources that affect the aquifer. We do not have access to treated water. Nettie Fred tests our water every spring when we start up our well pump, and we can provide a measurement of potential aquifer problems. From my view, the lake is the lowest I've ever seen it. There are two potential causes: the drought conditions of this summer and the drawing of 1.2 million gallons of water daily from the lake. Lack of rain keeps the aquifer from regenerating. Unfortunately, we cannot control the weather. I do not know how many people from the town of Monroe will be affected by low aquifer issues. Water is life. Without water, life on this unique planet would never have developed, and if water is not available, life would cease to exist. In conclusion, lake residents are the best 24/7 volunteer security force for the protection of the lake. Keeping the lake secure protects our and the village's water source. The Village of Monroe should encourage lake residents to fish, which monitors the health of the aquatic life, and boat to be ever vigilant in observing abnormalities around the lake. We live to see something, say something. We live the see something, say something request, but go beyond by doing something. Our request is simple. Keep the current law on the books. Use of Lake Monbassia for boating and fishing with proper village registration, but perhaps with the following modifications. Town official and lake residents are only eligible to register for boating and fishing. Adopt the New York State DEC rules for boats on a reservoir. Fishing along with village registration also requires a New York State fishing license. And perhaps make this a change that requires a 2-year trial period and revisit the issues in 2 years. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Anyone else who had written and didn't or spoke and had it in writing, if you want to send it to me, that I would appreciate that, because then we'll put it into the record.
Okay, if everyone,
I just want to ask one more question, is that okay? In the proposed law, it references Section 10, Article 14B in the first paragraph. 14B relates to traffic. I just think you might want to clarify that. All right.
Thank you.
Excuse me, I came in late. Did you call my name? Russell?
I don't have your name on here, but
I did submit questions.
Please, sir. Please.
your first name?
Brandon, B-R-A-N-N-I-N, last name Russell, R-U-S-S-E-L-L.
Perfect.
Good evening, and thank you for the time you're taking to discuss this. My name is Brandon Russell. I live at 12 Lakeview Drive, Monroe, and I've lived there on the lake for 25 years. I did submit these questions. I'm not looking for answers tonight. I'd like to think that we can have another meeting to discuss this in the future. I think some really good points have been brought up. I also attended the 2 meetings that were held last week and found them very informative, especially the one put on by Barton and Leguisi. And based on that, I have 3 questions. The Barton and Leguisi report, the Orange County Water Master Plan, and the Village of Monroe's 2021 Annual Drinking Water Report all indicate that the potential for drinking water contamination by the reservoir bordering properties is low to negligent. So my question would be, please provide the documentation that supports the Village Board of Trustees' findings that have determined that access to the lake by the adjacent property owners has or will introduce a risk of contamination to the village water supply. Secondly, that same report had a section under visions, and it recommends an engaged and knowledgeable local community to support source water from contamination. The Orange County Master Plan regarding reservoirs state there appears to be a need to reconcile town planning efforts with resource water protection initiatives, both within towns as well as across town boundaries. They use the example there of Walton Lake being in Monroe that supplies the town of Chester with water. And in this particular case, we're all the same town of Monroe, the Village of Monroe, and in this case, the town of Monroe residents that are here are willing participants to be that educated, knowledgeable group to help protect the water. And the model program, which has been referenced here before, Orange County recommends, by the way, the Monbassia Reservoir, as long as a half a dozen others, are considered priority reservoirs because of the demand of water that we have on them. So the Orange County recommends the Model Reservoir Program, Management Program, is the Village of Tuxedo. And what that is, it works in partnership with the town of Tuxedo, the Village of Tuxedo, and the residents. So my question is, has the Village Board of Trustees reviewed the Orange County's recommended Town Village Tuxedo recommended Model Reservoir Lake Management Program? And if so, do they recognize the role that the lake residents have in protecting the lake from contaminants? And lastly, the local residents, as it previously stated, had formed a loose-knit initiative group and had submitted a letter on September 19th of this year. This letter indicates that the efforts the lakeside residents have put in, loosely considered Monbassia Reservoir Preservation Association was a consideration, but more specifically stakeholders. Stakeholders to be responsible for ensuring, and as it said, see something, say something, and to be aware of what's going on. We are the stewards of the lake and have been that helps protect this for the town of Monroe. So my last question would be, will the Village Board of Trustees consider an additional meeting with a group of Monbassia Lake property owner residents to further explore how our cooperative efforts with the Village of Monroe will continue to ensure the safety and quality of the water? One thing I'd like to add is I would just use myself as an example that one time in the last couple of years when the wheat harvester broke down, I towed it to my property. You guys came over, they fixed the problem, and I said, you know, you're welcome to use it any time. And I think a lot of people feel that way. So once again, thank you for your time, and I look forward to further meetings.
John Donlan, 34 Hain. I'm on East Monbasha. Thanks again for having this meeting and letting us speak. I did want to just point out that from that first meeting that we found out that the study that was done did not take into account the animal waste. As a gentleman with the jar of water stated, there is a National Geographic scene going on across much of that lake. There are animals, not only are the animals feces running off into the water, but there's dead animals that become infected. There's vultures around the lake, and I think that's probably a result of so much state property and not a lot of houses on the lake. I recently had my water tested. Again, we're basically accessing the same water, and I was told that there was quite a bit of organic material from animals in the water, and that was the primary additive in the primary aspect of the water that was of concern. So I would think that would be the same, or along the lines, the same concern for Lake Monbasha. But it seems that the study was done to find out if the plastic from the kayaks is contaminating the water. And it just seems that a missite, because so much of this organic animal matter is ending up in the water that a handful of kayaks accessing the lake a few times pales in comparison to, again, dead animals and feces running into the water. And it's not, and again, my water was just tested a few months ago, and that's what they found primarily in the water. The other issue is still, again, when we live on the lake and somebody accesses the lake, and if they are to hurt themselves on our properties, while we may not be found guilty, we will still be liable and we still be dragged into court. That is a sure thing. It does state that we are technically liable because it's our property. If somebody is accessing our property and then hurts themselves, we're going to find ourselves into court, and that can cause a number of problems, and something that I'm very concerned about and have been concerned about since I've lived here. Often people are accessing the lake and coming onto my property from off of the property, and I don't want to have to police that property. And if you are to take away my access to maintain my property safely with a boat, that's a problem for me, and it's going to create more liability for me if someone were to injure themselves. And again, sure, we can call 911, but I live on a cliff, and it's going to take somebody 30 minutes to get down there, and that's if they don't get hurt. So I absolutely need to be able to patrol my property safely and maintain my property safely. And the third thing, in terms of recreation, I have a 10-year-old son, a 12-year-old daughter. I will keep them from throwing their fishing lines into the water, if that's what you'd like. But I would say that the town of Monroe is seeing a lot of people move out of this town, and I don't think that that's sending the right message to the younger generation in this town that we are going to, that you can't throw your fishing line in the water. So I would like you to just consider those things. I think that you have a room full of people that are willing to work with you, and I look forward to doing that as well. Thank you.
Okay. Has anyone that would wish to speak would like to at this time, or are we good? Okay. Just a couple of quick comments, and then I'm going to pass this around to the board. So first and foremost, it's very important that everybody recognize that we recognize everybody that lives on that lake. That's why you're all here. That's why we're here, right? We had met a couple of years ago with the folks up there at Lakeside, and we discussed and listened to the concerns regarding the invasive species on the lake. And we took a very proactive stance on it. We've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to correct that problem, and we continue that work, right? So that's a really important work. First and foremost, everybody I've met, probably personally here at one time or another, we've had this discussion. And there's been different, conversations as to what was said at that meeting up at Lakeside and what was not said and so forth and so on. At this point, I don't think much of that, I won't say it matters, but I think it's more important that we get this right, right? So to that end, we've taken everybody's comments, both verbally and in writing, and we appreciate everyone's comments, and all of them get the proper consideration, but we've got a lot of work to do. And I think that's really where I'm going back to originally from 2 years ago. When you look at all the writing about this, somebody mentioned 100 years ago. Well, if you read what was 100 years ago on the books, in writing, filed in deeds, filed in documentation, you'd be shocked. And we've got a lot of work to do on that end forward, just to get a clear understanding. I've spent many conversations talking to different folks, and we discussed different superintendents on that water body who used to throw you off when he felt like it. If he liked you, maybe not so much. But we all, I think, if we took a bit of introspection, we'd all say, you know what, that did happen. We were thrown off that lake. I know our PD and our other employees do take people off the lake or ask them to leave the lake, and they comply. So there's a really difficult piece when we look at what was allowed in Chapter 195, which referred to getting an application and applying for an application. To my knowledge, up until the day Mr. O'Neill came in the other day, to my knowledge, okay, I've asked everybody here. I've spoken to 3 of the board members who were on the board at the time, back in 2011, and nobody's ever applied from 2011 north. I can't speak prior to that, but nobody's ever applied. I can't speak about it, but when you read the local law and you read what it says, it's basically encapsulated in 3 sentences. And we think there's a lot more to that local law than currently exists on the books. And that was the impetus behind doing all of this work. It wasn't to harm, create loss, to do anything on the negative. This board has tremendous concern about that property. Somebody had said the other day, I don't know who it was, but somebody shouted out and said that there's an Airbnb on that lake. You know, it's something I think about. You know, and let me just pose this as you. So I've got 100 owners, and one of them is an Airbnb. Now, if the Airbnb is rented out 30 times in a year, how many people, using every property as one, how many people, family-wise, property-wise, would have had the opportunity to enjoy that lake, let's say, in 1 year? If 30 people came to the Airbnb, and there's 100 owners. You understand the question? No. Okay.
Is that 100 Airbnbs?
So, no. You have 100 owners, and they all go out and they enjoy the lake. The Airbnb, though, has owners that come, or has people that come and use the lake. I don't know them, you don't know them, right? They don't know whether it's a set of rules that we give them. We don't know who those folks are. And I think it's important that we understand that. You know, somebody mentioned 9/11, see something, say something. A lot of things have changed in this world since 9/11, a lot of things. You know, Camp Comfort's been around for many, 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 many years. Many of the folks in this room haven't been around as long as Camp Comfort has. But there's been a lot of different things that have been said and done out in that lake. I heard a story just the other day that Henry Sherman and Judge King used to go out on the lake and duck hunt. I didn't even know that. You know, a lot of things go on. So what I'm trying to get at, without sounding I'm just carrying on, is that we've got a lot of work to do. We have council reviewing a lot of documentation. We want to understand what it is we need to do to, A, protect the water, notwithstanding all the efforts that all the folks have suggested here tonight and prior to handpicking and harvesting invasive species and keeping an eye on things. As the supervisor mentioned in the ongoing tonight, we had gone out to the lake and we had 2 guys doing their thing on one side of the rock, and then we had another 7 on the other side. One young lady was naked. And we had to ask her to leave. I took my shirt off just to put some clothes on her. I couldn't believe it. Then, you know, we all know the rope story, right? And the rope's been going on that lake forever. Now, if somebody swings off that lake, off that rope, and hits a rock, that's a problem, right? So we take it down, they put it back up. They understand, but you know, listen, I really don't want to create an exchange. What I'm trying to say very passionately is speak as passionately as you all are, okay? Certainly I believe this, John, right? Certainly I believe this, John. If somebody were in distress out in that water and you had a boat on the shore, in my heart, knowing how you speak about it, you're going out in that boat regardless of a local law. You're not telling the guy that's in distress, I can't do it, the law says I can't. I think you're going out there, and I think you're gonna save that person's life, potentially, right?
What if you take my boat away?
I'm not taking your boat away. My point just being is that I don't wanna get stuck in all those places. I'm just trying to express that, number one, we are as passionate and as concerned as you all are about that water body. And while, you know, there are certain things that are said, there are many different versions of it. I've met with Fred and his wife here in the lobby of the Village Hall, and we had discussions about the use of that lake, right? I've met with Mary Ann Bischoff. I've met with Dr. Chevalier. You know, a lot of people, you know, on this matter, including Annette. And I think the theme has always been consistent here in the village. We're here to protect that water body. And yes, did we say that the stewards were important to us? Those folks that live on their lake and keep an eye on monitoring it? Sure. It's not 100% foolproof, but it's certainly better than what we can offer because we're not on the lake, you know? I've got a book inside that I'd love to share with anybody that goes back to 1896 up until 1947, when regular tours were made up there, shooing people off that lake. And whoever was the watch guard had to sign in and out, you know, when he took water samples and what he did with them. It was a very interesting read. So, you know, there's a lot of pieces of this. And Trustee Carl worked for Henry Sherman back in the day when Henry was going out and John was coming in. And I've spoken to some of the residents about some of Henry's behaviors. You know, it's a very interesting, very difficult process to deal with. It's not as simple as saying basically what that 2000 law says, which, by the way, none of us knew existed. None of us. I don't know if you all did, but we didn't. We were aware of it until Allison Priest told us in 2019. Had no idea. I couldn't fathom the idea of somebody swimming, fishing, enjoying that lake as a water body, as a water source. That's just what I knew at the time and thinking about it. Never thinking about what the DEC recommends, what Tuxedo Park has, what Ashokan has, and on and on and on. I'm just thinking about what we have and looking at it and dialoguing on that. And that's a really important piece. So while I've asked several members in the audience tonight to have faith in the process, you know, I continue to ask for that. Okay, there's conversation that needs to be had. This is the Village of Monroe. It's the Village of Monroe's water and property. I don't want to get stuck on, you know, how much into the water you own. I've got a document inside that's dated 1920.
Yep.
Basically talks about a high water mark a foot over the spillway. Now, can you just imagine this? The spillway, everybody knows what a spillway is. Well, when that water level gets 1 foot above it, any flooded surrounded area around that belongs to the Village of Monroe in 1920. I mean, that's just pretty remarkable, you know? And it's in writing, and it's filed information. So we're trying to learn all this stuff. We're trying to digest it. You know, I got a teacher, I got a retired engineer, I've got a water guy here, I've got an accountant over here, and myself. And we're trying to take all this information and digest it appropriately and correctly so that we make the best decision we possibly can for the Village of Monroe and the town of Monroe, because they drink the water. A lot of their districts receive their water from us. And it's more than just the water, please understand. And I don't mean to get off on a tangent, but the day that kind of really set this pace here was the day we just applied copper sulfate, and there were people swimming in the lake. And I had 2 weed boats going out there working with total disregard. There was a paddle boat out there, the one you stand on, like a sailboat or whatever. There was a canoe coming out from the Camp Comfort Way, although I will tell you, I don't know if it was a Camp Comfort person. I have no idea. but that was coming one way. I was standing there. I was there watching the day's activity, and I was like, wow, and that's a difficult thing to understand. I mean, I don't know what copper sulfate does to the body. I don't. Maybe if I read up on its interactions, I'll learn about it, but I took that very seriously, So I just want you all to understand that we hear every single person in this room and acknowledge everything. And I know we all realize that what we have to do here, and servicing our things, sometimes it's not the most eloquent work. We had a great opportunity to acknowledge Jack Thor tonight, which has opened up our meeting, and I'm really proud of you. Great work, and that'll continue with our young people. Somebody mentioned young people and setting a tone and lessons people. We take that really seriously. I know I do, I know this board does, and I think you all do, right? Young people are the backbone. They're the next stewards. They're the next group that comes up and says, you know what, I want to serve here. I want to serve on the lake. I want to be part of this. I want to be better than other things. And those are all important pieces, especially for people like us. We care about this community. And that's what's prompted all of this. It's based on nothing else. Prior to this incident, I didn't know anybody at Camp Comfort. I drove through once with my former police chief. I was just dying to see it. I had never been in there. It was the wintertime. Nobody was there. And then I got invited up for a barbecue on Labor Day. And I met a whole bunch of folks up there, and it was a great time. Couldn't have been more gracious. They gave me a book. Dr. Chevalier signed it, telling the whole story of that Camp Comfort. And those are big pieces, you know what I mean? It wasn't taken lightly. I just received a book the other day from another resident up there, Alex Rivera, which I gave to the board and to the village to keep and hear. It talks about the early Monroe, 200 years ago, by a first pastor here at the First Presbyterian Church. So there's a lot of pieces, a lot of moving parts, and I want you to understand that. I really do. I'm not big on clapping, that's not my thing. I get the frustration, and I think this helps it a bit, but it's not helping this. We know what you all want to say, what you want to feel. I've gotten letter after letter about it, and I take them all very dear to me. But we've got a job to do, so I'm asking you to let us continue that work, and when the time is appropriate, I did speak with Mary Ann Bischoff after the water quality meeting, and she did offer to step up. Should we have some broader group of people getting together to discuss these things? But I do look at a much bigger picture. I look at tomorrow. I look in 2 years, 5 years. That one house that's an Airbnb, what happens when there's 5 of them? Money talks.
Did you confirm that it's an Airbnb? You just said there may be one.
Yeah. I would confirm it. If you give me.
That'd be good. If you confirm it, that's fine.
Yeah.
Listen,
Suspect it.
if you're confirming it, and you have guidelines, bringing the town into this with our STR laws will prohibit and not allow, we could possibly either revoke a permit if they apply for one, or issue them a violation if they haven't applied for one.
Right, and that's a good point. And to my point is that we need that time to see where all those holes are. If you look at 195 today, there's 1,000 holes in it. And that was the real purpose behind rescinding it. It wasn't about taking any of your rights away to go out there and enjoy your summers as you've had for the past 100 years. It had nothing to do with that. It was thinking in the big picture, tomorrow and the next day and 2 years from now and 3 years from now, and then thinking, if I have an Airbnb out there, what if I have 5 more? What if I have somebody that doesn't have the regard you do? I don't know, do you all get along out there? Does anybody have a problem with each other? I don't know. There's some activities bother some and not others. You have a right, right? If we establish a right, you have that right to be out there. Please don't tread on me. That's my right. And that's why I say that's a really important piece of property up there. We just spent $1 million buying a piece up there, for the protection of everybody. It's a lot of money. So we've spent probably close to $500,000 just cleaning the place, and continue to do so. We're going into year 3. So I just ask that of you. I don't want to get stuck on a lot of things. I've spoken way too long about it. But I want you to know that this board does think about all those things. And everything that you've said and everything you've dealt with. John, I come back to you because the way you passionately speak about helping someone, I believe that. I don't believe you're saying it for no reason. I believe you mean that. You know, and I have to think about that, right? I mean, I have a natural occurrence to say, an automatic response kicks in. I'm going. I don't care what you say. If you had a gun to my head, I'm still going. I'm not gonna watch somebody, you know what I mean? So, you know, it brings me pause. I think about it. And so, you know, I want you all to understand that. This is serious business.
Question, when the copper sulfate was put in, put in the lake, were the residents in the area notified?
Well,
Notification was put on the,
Oh, guys, please.
notification was put on the front gate of the gatehouse.
Wait, guys, please. So you put a notification on a gate, but what about the people on the other side of the lake?
well, wait, let me, all right, good point. But let me ask anybody in the audience, we have a wind boat. Anybody know what that wind boat does out there?
Drops the copper sulfate.
Anybody else want to tell me what that boat does? I think everybody knows what it does, right?
The airboat you're talking.
The airboat. Right. It drops copper sulfate, right? In spite of that happening and that vent happening, the activity on the lake was just prohibited. You just I couldn't wrap my head around it.
Have we ever been informed the length of time that we should be staying away from the lake when you do copper sulfide? Or have we been given any guidelines of what is copper sulfide?
Sure. So,
I know you're both spraying something. I didn't know it was copper sulfide. I just knew you
Yeah.
were going around spraying something with two big things coming out the back.
right. So, again,
Give me information, say, stay away from the lake for a day. Absolutely.
yeah.
Just
Well,
let me know.
Well, if you look at the earlier ordinances prior to 2011, you'll see that the only thing that was permitted was boating. And when I say permitted, by permit application, there's different versions of that.
I know.
Okay, so I don't know if anybody ever had it. I know everybody's enjoyed a lifetime of it while it wasn't allowed, if you wanted to go into the nitty-gritty of it. But a whole community has enjoyed that lake's use without having the express written stamped approval of being able to be on it. So here we are coming forward in 2019, which I didn't know it even existed, that people are out there. I know our PD and I know other employees have shooed people off the lake and people have complied and gone off the lake. But I think everybody talks about the airboat, they know about it. They know what it does.
We don't know anything about it.
Okay, well, all right, well, listen, I don't,
Mr.
listen.
Mayor, we need to stop this.
Okay, actually, no, we're not gonna debate it back and forth. I'm just bringing up the point for the supervisor, but the point of the matter is that there needs to be better communication about what is going on out there by the Village of Monroe. And that's the only way we're gonna deal with this, okay? As far as, just one other point I wanted to make. Mr. O'Neill, sorry. Sir, you said that you were not informed of the paving?
No, they knocked on my door actually, at 6 o'clock. They rang my doorbell. We were out to dinner, telling us that they were gonna pave and that we had to stay off the road for the morning. We told them we had a contractor coming at a certain time. But hold on. Several of us had that part of the road paved. You guys the day before cut the road. Now, granted, it's in a better state. The work you did made the road better for all of us. I'm not, absolutely. But we paved for that road, and you guys cut it without even talking to us and took it down the day before you paved it.
Right.
To the point being made, we just need better communication.
Well, and the only reason I'm asking is I was under the impression, because I gave the direction to make the notification to you folks earlier, the day before, 2 days before, and you're saying it wasn't made.
After the road was cut and the prep work was done, literally the day before the actual.
Okay, that's what I want to know.
Okay.
I'm not disputing it, but I am interested to know. Thank you. Okay, having said all that,
So I'd like to make a suggestion. It's very clear, to me anyway, that this board is not going to be voting on this local law tonight. So the board, as regarding the public hearing, has a few options. You can close the public hearing and allow 10 days of written comments to be submitted. You can continue the public hearing, you can adjourn it to the next time the local law appears on the agenda, or you can just leave the public hearing open indefinitely until you make a decision. My suggestion is that
You close the public hearing, allow 10 days for written comment, and then if there are substantial changes to the local law prior to its reconsideration or adoption, you notice another public hearing, so that the public would be aware that changes have been made.
And another public hearing would be opened,
Yes.
assuming that we took action on it.
Assuming that you decide to move forward with any changes. If you do and you make changes to what you've already put on the local law, then I would suggest another public hearing. Otherwise, everyone just keeps showing up, and I think that's a waste of everyone's time.
Does that mean if you accept the provision the way you've written it, like the change you're proposing, but and you just accept it, that you don't have to have another meeting?
That is correct.
So that means you can just do what you want without having.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I would say that, well, I think you're mischaracterizing what I said. So as I suggested to my board, if you make substantial changes or make changes that may be viewed as substantial to the local law as you've proposed it, then my suggestion would be you open another public hearing. The public would be allowed to comment on the revised local law.
We already commented. Guys, really, that's disrespectful.
Does the board understand what I'm suggesting? Okay.
Is it possible to rescind it and we meet over the winter?
The board hasn't made any action yet. They have not taken action. There is nothing to rescind.
Do you understand that, Marianne?
I guess I don't know the right word. Is it possible to just let it rest, not put forward this change?
The board always has the option of not adopting a local law that is proposed. It also has the option of, after hearing public comment, making revisions to that local law and reintroducing it, which would, if those revisions are substantial, necessitate another public hearing, which would provide the public with another opportunity to comment.
So what does that mean for now?
It means that we have to make a decision as a board. Are we going to close the public hearing and keep open for 10 days? Any further written comment? Okay. I think we've all heard from everybody in this room, whether in writing or in verbally, right? So I think to add to a public hearing like this, as council mentioned, to have you folks come back out and express, we know exactly how you feel. It couldn't be any clearer. Do you know what I mean? So do we close the public hearing and take no action, which the board is not prepared to take? So there'll be no passing of any, rescinding of any law tonight. We've got a lot of work to do. And until such time as we have something to discuss with the public, which likely will have substantive changes, in which case then another public hearing will happen, nothing happens.
But respectfully, how would we get information from the village? Because we're not village residents. So that was my question before.
You can sign up, I'm sorry, not to interrupt you, but real quick, you can actually sign up with the clerk on Constant Contact, and you'll be hearing about anything that goes on out there in the world of the village, insofar as meetings, public hearings, anything that's of any importance will be out there. It'll be on our webpage. So,
I understand. I'm just saying from the village perspective to reach out to us who are, we're not your residents, however, we do have
Website.
impact on this.
my recommendation is to get on the Constant Contact. That will get you, that's our conduit, right? Are you thinking about like a hard copy mail? What's your process?
Well, I'm thinking when the town does something, they send their residents information.
And how do they do that, Supervisor?
It's done by Constant Contact, and it's done via our website, and it's also noticed.
And we would do the same thing.
And if you close the public hearing tonight, okay?
Well, if they close the public
Yeah,
hearing.
I mean, I'm looking at you for, if it's closed, and then there's substantial changes made, you're gonna have to renotice it, correct?
Absolutely.
Just a thought, why would you wanna spend more money if you don't have to? Because you're gonna have to renotice it, you're gonna have to notice it in the paper, you're gonna have to spend more money. Just a thought.
I'm not sure what you're getting at, but I think what you're saying is, why wouldn't they just leave it open?
Yes,
Because then when would the public know when it's on the agenda again without constantly looking at the agenda? So I think what would be a better solution is the board has heard the comments. They've, as you hear from the mayor and the board, they've taken every comment seriously. We've had submitted to us legal questions as well as a lot of written public comments. There would be a period of time to submit more written comments, more questions, 10-day period. The public hearing would be closed. The board would then consider whether to move forward at all, whether to move forward with a revised local law, as well as finish the research that the mayor alluded to tonight. If the local law is reintroduced and there are changes, then it would be required that a new public notice be published. You would hear about it on constant comment. It would be all the noticing that that was done for this hearing.
But if there are no changes, you take it as proposed.
If there are no changes, then, well, if there are no changes and the board decides to move forward with it, then they would, what you would see on the agenda is another item that it's on the agenda. It would probably say the adoption of local law number, whatever it is at that point.
And I agree with Mayor Dwyer that it becomes redundant. People keep coming back saying topics discussed and whatnot. May I suggest that before a decision is made, that the questions obviously will be answered, but that maybe there's some discussion with two key people, 2 point people that live around the lake that have spoken tonight, so that you discuss with them the direction you might be going, so that they're aware prior to, and maybe there could be some additional correction.
I mean, that's
And
certainly
I say
something.
I say that because when we passed our STR law, we were totally against Airbnbs. Nobody wanted Airbnbs. The public came in, there was a lot of upheaval about some of the Airbnbs losing their opportunity to bring economy to the community. We listened, we had people form a committee. We went back and forth with them consistently, and we came to a great STR law. So, and that's why I'm saying that.
And that's always an option that the board can consider at some point, obviously. You can certainly form a committee. You can put anyone on that committee that you want. That's completely up to the board, as the supervisor suggests.
If we're all in agreement that changes need to be made, why not have another?
The board hasn't deliberated and made any decisions about whether or not changes need to be made.
Things were said that, by everyone, that work needs to be done. So I think we all have a fear that work won't be done and something will be passed through under our noses.
Well,
I think you have to
that's
give them
not
the
going to happen.
opportunity to discuss amongst themselves.
I think the issue, and we're gonna end this
Yeah, because we have I have 2 attorneys on standby for
right now
executive
as we
session.
speak, right? But this board, I won't even put the board in this. I have spoken to 2 key players in this room tonight. And I've advised both of them to have faith in my process and in my diligence in what I do. I'm not so sure it was heeded or believed or whatever. As a result, an attorney was hired. That was their choice to do. But I don't give anything out without substance behind it. Never. Anybody that knows me knows that's the way we work. And I work really hard with this board to make sure that that happens. Okay? So you can rest assured that nothing is going to happen under anybody's nose. Okay? It's not the way we work. It's not the way I work as a human being, as an individual, or as a board, as a mayor. That won't happen. Nothing in the night. There'll be no special meetings, nothing whatsoever. But to the point of continuing a public hearing and not closing it, this is never going to end. And I think we need to do that. No action will be taken. I'm telling you that straight up right now. There's just too much work that needs to get done.
Mr. Mayor, I do. I have 2 attorneys on standby.
Yep. Okay.
So they are on the clock. we need to get through the rest of the meeting
Okay,
so that we can
sorry.
get to the executive session.
Okay. Let's close
All right,
this.
so,
My Airbnb, there's no Airbnb around Monbassia. I don't know if they closed it or not.
I don't know. Who knows?
okay, so the board should make a motion to either close the public hearing, as I suggested, those three options.
Okay, I need a motion to close the public hearing at this time.
And leave a window of 10 days.
We'll leave a window of 10 days
For
open
written
for
public
further
comment.
written comment from the public. And
Carl will make that motion.
Ferraro seconded.
further question? Call the question?
Berenger, aye.
Ferraro, aye.
Carl, aye.
O'Connor, aye.
Dwyer, aye, so carried. Anybody wishing to further this conversation can do so in writing for the next 10 days, submit it to me here at the Village Hall. It'll be continued. Everybody that has, it's part of the permanent record. As you see, that the clerk has been very diligent about everybody's comments, and everything is included in the public record. Okay, so I want you to know that.
And I'm sorry, Megan, when do those questions get answered? Like, when do we get the response from the questions in September and the questions from this evening?
You may not get a formal response. The purpose of a public hearing is not to answer every question that is posed to the board. The board will consider every question and may very well answer it for themselves. And what will be reflected, if the local law is brought up again, will be the answers to those questions in terms of the I don't want this public to I don't want you to go home and think you're gonna get a personal answer to each question that you posed.
Okay. So, point of order. Thank you.
Thank you. That was painful. How do you turn these, can you turn these off?
Sorry?
Can you turn individual mics off?
I'm sorry.
Can I turn my mic off?
You want yours off?
No, I'm just saying that if I wanted to mute it.
No, there are no switches on them. I have them here. You want me to shut it, I can.
Okay, no.
Hi, Jack.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
I'll see you around.
Thank you.
Marty, next time, forget these. Bring tequila.
About the salt shed over the well.
Okay, next order of business is the approval of the meeting minutes of the September 20th, 2022. I need a motion to accept them as submitted by the clerk.
Motion?
Second?
Carl will second.
Further discussion? Call the question?
Berenger, aye.
Ferraro, aye.
Carl, aye.
O'Connor, aye.
Dwyer, aye. Next order of business is a resolution modifying Chapter 43 of the Village Code, vehicles and traffic to prohibit vehicle parking on or standing at 425 Route 208.
Do you want me to go through that resolution real quick? Okay, let me.
I read it.
Oh, okay. You got it?
We read it. He explained it.
Okay. So this was from the village PD, from the chief. And basically, he's saying this is a very dangerous place to park or stand.
I agree.
Okay, so I don't think we need to read it back. It's just,
By the gas stations, that one
yeah.
road run.
Essentially,
one-way
the
road.
chief, you know, if you pass this resolution, the chief would then send it to the DOT. The DOT would put the signs up. So
That was gonna be my question. That's a state road there,
Yes.
so we just.
Yeah, no, the DOT would have to put those signs in.
But they want the resolution.
Okay, I got you.
You have to authorize them to do
Yep.
that, request it.
Okay, so, Kim, you have that, right?
Yeah.
Your next step? Okay, so after we get this done, so I need a motion?
Carl will make that motion.
O'Connor will second.
Call the question?
Berenger, aye.
Ferraro, aye.
Carl, aye.
O'Connor, aye.
Dwyer, aye, so carried, thank you. Next order of business. Resolve the Board of Trustees accept the recommendation of village engineers John O'Rourke and approve the request for a bond reduction of Spring Hill Apartments for the work remaining to $260,559, noting that most of the items in the bonds are completed. The withheld amount is due to ongoing construction activities and remaining work. Both the Village Water and Highway Department find the recommendations acceptable. So this is carried on from last meeting, we discussed this. Okay, so now we've got Highway and Water approving it, as well as our village engineer. I need a motion to accept the reduction.
Berenger will make the motion.
Carl will
Ferraro
say.
sec-
Go ahead, Andy.
Ferraro second.
Call the question?
Berenger, aye.
Ferraro, aye.
Carl, aye.
O'Connor, aye.
Okay. Next order of business is the ratification of resolution of adoption local law 9 of 2022, amending chapter 200 zoning to vest authority to perform the Monroe balancing test in the Village of Monroe Board of Trustees. Whereas an introductory local law entitled chapter 200 vesting to the vest authority to
Mr.
perform.
Mayor, do you want me to just explain what happened here for
Yeah, let's do
for
it.
the board?
Yeah.
So you adopted this local law at the last meeting after a duly noticed public hearing. The problem is that upon further study, I determined that it may have been required to be referred to Orange County Planning Department under GML 239. So I did that. We got the response saying it's a local determination. So in order to moot any potential jurisdictional error, I am asking that the board ratify the adoption of this local law tonight. So essentially, it does say that. So the public hearing was noticed and held on September 20th. You adopted the law at that time. I then submitted the GML 239 referral to the county. They responded immediately almost, saying local determination. So now tonight you take the action of simply ratifying what you did at the prior meeting.
Okay. So I need a motion to accept the ratification, or make the ratification of resolution of local law number 9, amending chapter 200.
Carl will make that motion.
Second?
O'Connor will second.
Call the question?
Berenger, aye.
Ferraro, aye.
Carl, aye.
O'Connor, aye.
Dwyer, aye, so carried. Next order was C, adoption of local law 10 of 2022. We're going to table that. That's the modification of chapter 195 of the Village Code Water to protect Monbassia Reservoir from contamination. Next order of business under new business is the event application for the scarecrows and corn stalks. Resolved, the Board of Trustees approve the application submitted by Mayor Dwyer to host a Halloween parade on
The hanging scarecrows, this is Barbara Mallory, Girl Scouts.
Requested.
Yeah, it's on the agenda,
Oh,
but
I'm
I
sorry,
don't see it.
I'm
in the-
sorry,
Okay.
turned too many pages. Okay, in a letter from Barbara Mallory, Service Unit Director of the Monroe Woodbury Girl Scouts, she requests permission of the Village Board of Trustees to host their annual Scarecrows in the Village activity on Saturday, October 2022, rain date of Sunday, October 23rd of 2022. The Girl Scouts would like to decorate the downtown of the Village of Monroe with corn stalks and scarecrows for the fall season. The corn stalks will be placed between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. by both the Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts, and then the Girl Scouts will gather in the commuter parking lot by the bus depot and Beck's at 11 a.m. to take a group photo, and then we'll proceed to hang the scarecrows and lampposts. Resolved, the Board of Trustees approves the request of Barbara Mallory to hang corn stalks and scarecrows on lampposts in the downtown for the fall season on Saturday, October 22, between 9 and 12.
It said and the lamppost, it's on the lamppost.
Right,
Sorry.
okay? And is it 9 to 11?
9 to 11, and then they're gonna do the group photo at 11, and then they're gonna hang the scarecrows on the lampposts.
Okay, so what are they doing from 9?
And they know what's going on the lamppost, right?
Yeah.
Not like on
Okay.
benches and.
Somebody make a motion, please?
Berenger will make the motion.
Carl will second for discussion.
Please.
The only concern I have with that, and I know I brought it up last year, is when they hang those scarecrows in intersections at nighttime, they're in the crosswalks, and you actually think it's somebody waiting to cross. If we can try to keep them out of the crosswalks so it doesn't interfere.
You had that in the memo? Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, John.
Right.
All right, call the question?
Berenger, aye.
Ferraro, aye.
Carl, aye.
O'Connor, aye.
Dwyer, aye, so carried, thank you. Next order of business is the Halloween parade. Resolved, the Board of Trustees approve the application submitted by Mayor Dwyer to host a Halloween parade on Saturday, October 29th, beginning at 12 noon. The parade will start out at the Village of Monroe commuter parking lot on Mill Pond Parkway and utilize the Heritage Trail, walking towards the center of the village for a candy crawl through the business district. The participants will then walk along Carpenter Place, make a left onto Mapes, and a right onto Spring, where they will be entering Smith Clove Park to participate in the Halloween community celebration, including pumpkin painting and hay rides. Approval and sign-off for the event application has been completed by the Building Department, Highway Department, and Police Department. The Monroe Police Department will provide 1 police officer on 3 hours of overtime to assist with pedestrian traffic during the parade. The estimated cost of additional police services is $205.50. Emergency services and the village insurance carrier, Marshall & Sterling, will be copied on the approval letter. I need a motion.
Carl will make that motion.
Second?
I'm in a second for discussion. I thought that we're supposed to start out at the Y.
Are they only including this because it's the village portion?
So this is, walking from the, I spoke to them.
Okay.
and
I
sent
just
you
want to make
an
sure, just because I,
L&D
okay.
Village, they're
Okay.
gonna do their thing from 11 to 12.
Okay.
And then people should drive.
Okay,
over
so
to
we
the
don't
commuter
need to
lot,
be-
So they don't have to walk from, because it's far
Okay.
for little kids to walk from the Y to the commuter lot and all the.
Okay, so theirs is really kind of separate, which is fine. I just want to.
Well, that's how it was done last
Okay.
year.
Advertising it with all of this.
Okay, that's fine. I didn't see the part. Okay, I'm good.
That's how it was done last year. They did their trunk or treat up there, then everybody came to the commuter lot, and then we,
That's fine.
yeah, they come down, they parked their cars, and
Oh.
all the kids got in, we just came right on down the
Yes,
trail.
Okay, and
down-
I know that Kristen was going to meet with them to just talk about if it was a drive-through trunk or treat or a walk-through, but that's
Okay.
at the Y. Okay,
Yeah, I
sorry,
won't-
just checking.
I won't be able to, I don't think I'm
Okay.
gonna be able to make it that day. I got my niece's daughter's
Christening.
christening. so-
All right, so,
Okay.
we have a
Sorry,
first
so,
and second?
Yeah, so we
Good?
got that, yeah.
Okay, call the question?
Berenger, aye.
Carl, I.
O'Connor, aye.
Dwyer, aye, so carried, thank you. Next discussion, or next item is the lease buyout of the Jeep Latitude, 2019. Trustee Berenger.
Be it resolved, the Board of Trustees authorizes Mayor Dwyer to purchase, am I on the right one?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, to purchase a 2019 Jeep Compass Latitude 4x4 VIN number 3C4NJDBBKT-709868 for the Building Department. The cost of this vehicle will be allocated from budget line A.3620.300, Building Inspector Motor Vehicle. I'd like to put this in the form of a motion.
I get a second?
Carl, a second for discussion.
Yep.
I looked at the closed-end lease on this. Some of the numbers are different from multiplying things out.
Sure.
But this car is 42 months old. Or going to be 42 months old. It's got 5,359 miles on it. That baffles me, number one. If I look at the numbers, the payments that were made out were $10,537.38, $6,250 at signing. Comes out to $16,931.49, plus the buyout of $14,769.75 is $31,701.24. Yet the agreed-upon price when this lease was done was $28,810. I really don't think you got a bargain with this, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'd have to look at the math.
I got it right here.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I'm just
But
thinking-
what baffles me is we have a building inspector's vehicle that's 42 months. It's got 5,300 miles on it.
Yeah.
Anybody else see the oddity to that?
Small village.
But I think that's a
Well,
personnel matter.
yeah.
What I need to know is, does the
All
board
right.
want to purchase it or give it back?
No, I'm just
No,
bringing
I'm
out-
with you. I'm just saying.
I'm bringing out the numbers.
Yep.
Maybe the board hasn't looked at it. I have.
No, I have.
I've handled leases before, and, you know, basically, you're $3,500, $3,599 more than the value of the
Okay,
vehicle.
so what would you like to do?
Well, you got a 4-year-old car with 5,300 miles on it. You can buy it for
I would think you could
$14,000.
get a lot of money for that, wouldn't you? if it's
I'd
only got
imagine.
We can also negotiate
100 miles.
that buyout. The buyout isn't in stone. It may have been on the lease, but it could be negotiated.
You know what, I doubt it now because the value of used cars
Are very high.
is high, and they see 5,300 miles on a vehicle, they're not gonna negotiate anything with you.
Right.
So,
So what does the
I'm
board want?
saying,
Yeah.
you know,
Buy it?
buy it, but,
Okay.
you know,
So-
I'm baffled on the mileage on this, I
Yep.
really am, for 4 years, almost 4 years old.
It's at
Okay.
100 and
So we have a motion on the table, we had a second for discussion.
Yep.
Call the question?
This is to buy it.
Buy it.
Buy it.
Aye. Berenger, aye.
Ferraro, aye.
Carl,
O'Connor, aye.
Dwyer, aye, so carried, thank you.
and we got the line that's coming out of, correct?
Yeah, that's the A 3620.300.
Okay.
Line's funded, so.
That's what we discussed that at budget time,
Yes.
because we knew this was coming up.
Yep.
Okay.
Just funny how much more mileage on police vehicles,
Yes.
considerably more.
So
For
we
the
have
same
a-
age vehicle.
So what we're gonna do is the next police vehicle ready for replacement, we'll give them that one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that'll take care of that.
1,000 miles.
Okay,
on it.
next order of business is the B&B Cucina, whatever, blah, blah, blah.
Barracuda.
Yeah, Lavera Cucina. Whereas the Board of Trustees of the Village of Monroe takes no exception to the approval of liquor license, hereby waives its right to 30-day hold on the license application for B&B Cucina LLC doing business as Lavera Cucina. Now therefore be resolved, the Board of Trustees waives its right to a 30-day hold on their license. I need a motion to waive that.
Berenger will make the motion.
Second?
Ferraro, second.
Call the question?
Berenger, aye.
Ferraro, aye.
Carl,
O'Connor, aye.
Dwyer, aye, so carried, thank you.
What, they got a change of ownership? Is that
Yeah.
what's going on here?
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, next order of business is the agreement of Cornerstone Engineering and Geology. Resolve the Board of Trustees authorize Mayor Dwyer to sign an agreement with Cornerstone Engineering and Geology to prepare the permit applications to obtain the required permits for the New York State DEC USA, known as ACOR, and the Village of Monroe for the Army Corps of Engineers for the Mill Ponds dredging project. The permitting will include both the north and south ponds, even though the dredge will be completed during separate seasons. The estimated cost to complete the scope of work is $58,711 and will be allocated from budget line 7110.4500 Parks Contractual. I need a motion.
Berenger will make the motion.
Second.
Carl will second that.
Call the question.
Berenger, aye.
Ferraro, aye.
Carl, aye.
O'Connor, aye.
Dwyer, aye, so carried. Okay. I'm good.
Me too.
Okay.
Is that it?
Council, regular set? Okay, I need a motion to go into executive.
Public comment or not?
Oh, yeah, please, I'm sorry. Any public comment?
Anybody?
I don't have this.
Did you bring the pinnacle deck?
No, 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 no.
Okay.
I do not have this kind of, on this computer.
You don't have an HDMI?
No, I do not.
Oh.
All right, go get yours. Did you send it to her by
Yeah.
chance?
I have no, I've got the link, but I can't hook up to that because I don't have this type of connection.
Yeah.
I should have brought my other computer.
Yeah, okay, we could use her computer. Can you just,
Yeah,
Okay, before, Deb,
yeah, okay.
sorry, could you come
That's
back a second? I need a motion to go in executive session for the purposes of attorney-client.
Carl will
Second.
second.
Ferraro, aye.
Carl, aye.
O'Connor, aye.
Dwyer, aye, so carried.
May.